Two Venezuelan F-16s roared so low over a U.S. Navy destroyer that sailors on deck could see the shadows racing across the steel. One jet screamed past with its afterburner blazing orange, lighting up the Caribbean night sky. But instead of returning fire or swerving off course, the USS Jason Dunham stayed perfectly steady. Why didn't they fire back? And how did this apparent act of provocation actually give the Navy exactly what it wanted most? Priceless intelligence. Stick around. This encounter wasn't a near miss, it was a calculated trap. Before we move on, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel and like the video. Why would the captain of a heavily armed destroyer sit motionless while a fighter jet roared directly above him? To any sailor standing on deck that day, the temptation to act must have been overwhelming. The jet passed so low, its exhaust felt almost within reach, its flame glowing in full view. Yet the USS Jason Dunham kept its steady bearing through the Caribbean waters, showing no external sign of alarm. The decision wasn't about courage alone. It was about calculated restraint, following an order given before the flyby even began. Do not escalate unless directly threatened. The Jason Dunham carried far more than a crew and a set of missiles. As an Arleigh Burke class destroyer, it had one of the most advanced Aegis radar systems operating in continuous sweep, tracking every move of the Venezuelan planes from dozens of miles out. The ship knew precisely where each jet was, how fast they were flying, and how close they dared to venture. The radar picture was crystal clear, but the captain's directive was equally sharp. Show no reaction. Watch, but do not provoke. Let the jets make all the noise. Still, sound discipline did not erase the risk. The Venezuelan jets screamed across the destroyer with the kind of aggression designed to trigger panic. From the bridge, the instinct to maneuver or fire must have surged in every officer's mind. One wrong decision, one launch command keyed in under the pressure of a roaring jet engine could have transformed this encounter into a head-on clash. The space between pride and disaster shrank with every low pass. Each pilot's movement became a test not just of steel, but of concentration. Even as the drama unfolded above their heads, the crew carried out their procedures with precision. The Navy's warnings blared over radio channels directed at the incoming aircraft. Every call was short, calm, and clear. Identify yourself, maintain separation, keep your distance. These messages repeated in measured sequence, not shouted in fear. The responses from the Venezuelan side remained absent, their silence fueling the spectacle. But every unanswered call underscored who truly set the rules of that encounter. On board, layers of defense stood ready to answer if the order changed. Radars tracked targets in real time. Vertical launching systems had missiles already standing by. The Phalanx close-in weapon system, a radar-guided Gatling gun meant to cut through cruise missiles at point-blank range, spun silently on the deck, sensors alive and watching. Yet no trigger was pulled. No missile shot through the sky. This posture wasn't weakness, it was control. The ship gave a message by its quiet readiness rather than by unleashing its weapons. The contrast could not have been sharper. The Venezuelan pilots relied on theater, dipping their jets into dangerous flybys to create a spectacle of defiance. The sailors aboard Jason Dunham relied on procedure and discipline, their calm steps radiating dominance more effectively than noise could ever achieve. Restraint became a projection of power, while impulsiveness exposed recklessness. Where the pilots sought attention, the ship displayed command. The risks cannot be understated. A single missile fired in anger could have unleashed hours, even days of chaos. A collision on the waves, a ship veering sharply to avoid confrontation, could have escalated tensions into a regional conflict no one truly wanted. By refusing to tip into that chaos, the captain held the line not just for his ship, but for an entire region watching with suspicion. What seemed like silence from the outside was nothing of the sort. Behind the calm decks and unanswered stunts, the Jason Dunham was recording, watching, and gathering, treating this provocation less as a threat and more as an opportunity. What if the Venezuelan F-16s revealed more in those reckless passes than they ever intended? From the ship's deck, it looked like nothing more than a dangerous display. But inside the Jason Dunham's operations center, dozens of systems were running silently, collecting every trace the jets left behind. For a U.S. destroyer, being flown over is not just a moment of tension, it is also an intelligence opportunity waiting to be captured. Every movement, every radio click, every burst of heat from an afterburner becomes part of a detailed record that analysts can study later. That's the advantage of fighting with sensors instead of instinct. Arleigh Burke class destroyers are built to be more than floating missile platforms. They are floating listening posts. From the moment those planes approached, the ship's systems started mapping them. The radar picture that tracked their speed and altitude also gave a timeline of their flight characteristics. The communication suites monitored every frequency shift, every click of a microphone, even small bursts of static that revealed which channels the Venezuelans were cycling through. This meant the destroyer's crew learned just as much from silence as they did from sound. Ironically, the jets came to flaunt power but ended up broadcasting their weaknesses. The AN/SLQ-32, an electronic warfare system fitted on the destroyer, quietly absorbed all of it. Designed to detect and analyze radar emissions, it can log not just the band a signal is on, but its exact fingerprint. When the Venezuelan pilots switched on search or targeting radars, even for seconds, the SLQ-32 stored those readings away like evidence. Later, they could be compared with known Soviet-made avionics patterns or matched against a global database that helps the Navy predict enemy habits. That means each pass over the ship left behind technical signatures as telling as a set of fingerprints at a crime scene. Then came the infrared sensors mounted on the ship. While the roar of the afterburner may have been dramatic to everyone topside, its heat profile carried more value than its noise. USIR sensors painted a clean outline of those engines, recording how hot they ran, how quickly the temperature jumped during throttle changes, even the turbulence of hot exhaust cooling in the night air. These signatures become a permanent record, a unique thermal picture that can later be used to identify a specific engine type or even determine its level of maintenance. This was not the first time a stunt like this turned into an intelligence win for the US. China has carried out flybys with warplanes shadowing near American patrols in the South China Sea, believing they were pushing Washington back. Analysts later revealed that such actions allowed the US to map out frequencies, maneuver profiles, and pilot responses under stress, all of which fed into training programs. More recently, Houthi forces trying to harass US or coalition ships in the Red Sea ended up radiating their missile guidance systems so widely that tracking stations cataloged every frequency for later targeting. What looked like defiance was in fact data leakage, and every repeat attempt filled American files with more material to use in simulations and exercises. In the end, restraint was never passive. It was active exploitation dressed as calm. Each second of silence on deck translated into gigabytes of recorded emissions and thermal maps stored below. The Venezuelan F-16s left, thinking they had shown dominance, unaware that the destroyer had made them transparent. That is the essence of the intelligence trap. Strength measured not by reaction, but by patience. And when viewed through that lens, the encounter stops looking like a near crisis and starts looking like proof that persistence, even in silence, carries more power than any shouting display overhead. Restraint turned out to be the strongest weapon. The Venezuelan jets left believing they had challenged a destroyer, but Jason Dunham gained their flight profile, electronic signals, and thermal traces without firing a single round. The ship stayed steady, and in that calm silence, Venezuela unknowingly handed over its playbook. Now, ask yourself this. If you were captain, would you have ordered weapons free or stayed calm under pressure? Which response actually holds more power? In modern conflict, the side that controls its temper often wins early, before missiles launch or anti-aircraft guns ever start spinning.